Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 5, and today we're taking a look at the 2020 Xpeng P7. Now this is a car, an all-electric sedan that has been in production since June 2020, and it has a range between 349 and 439 miles depending on the version you get. And yeah, this is the first full production all-electric Chinese car on this game. Although it's not the first electric Chinese car in this game, because obviously the Neo EP9 was the first of those, and obviously it's not even the first Chinese car in the game outside of the Neo. Obviously we had the Wuling Sunshine S as well. So yeah, but still, it's fantastic that we're getting more of these Chinese vehicles on this game. And yeah, this is the all-wheel drive variant of the P7, but you can have a rear-wheel drive version that also has a long-range version as well to get it up to that 439 miles, which is pretty damn long for an electric car. Not many get up to that kind of range, and yeah, I actually really rather like the look of this car. It looks far better than any Tesla equivalent, which for my money have always looked really rather quite boring. Obviously that's not the point of the cars, but still, never been a massive fan of the way they look. So yeah, as you can see, it's got a frunk on it, so you can put in your charging cables in there, I imagine. And yeah, then you've also got a really rather spacious interior, as you can see. Plenty of legroom up in the rear, and yeah, you've got your typical LCD screens that all of these electric cars have. But it does have some nice blue accent in on the doors there and on the rest of the car. And yeah, even though the screens are quite big, they're far from the biggest that you've ever seen on an electric car. The Tesla ones are far larger and are far more ostentatious as well. And yeah, but still nice and simple. But yeah, not much in the way of, you know, stunning design. There's only a few little bit of extras here and there that look any good. But it also has a really rather decent sized boot, although far from the biggest that we've seen on an electric car as well. I've seen Tesla cars that have far bigger boots, but then, you know, this isn't exactly the you know, the numerous amount of cars that Xpeng have made. This is, I think, their first proper full production car, so they're still probably learning the ropes on this kind of thing. But if it is a first timer from them, it's a fantastic one at that, in terms of how it looks, how it drives, and how it has a performance in terms of the range, as well as performance in terms of acceleration as well. So yeah, and underneath all this bodywork, it's got a 424 horsepower and 483 pounds-feet of torque combined power output from its two electric motors, one at the front, one at the rear, all powered by a series of batteries that total 80.87 kilowatt an hour. So yeah, plenty of oomph on the go, but it does weigh a fair bit at 4,542 pounds. So it's not a lightweight by any means, but then very few electric cars are, but usually they make up for that with even more power. But you know, as far as, you know, everyday kind of vehicles go that aren't, you know, hypercars or supercars or anything like that, it's still a reasonable amount of horsepower, and it's, you know, more than enough to deal with what it needs to do on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, let's nonetheless get out onto the open road and see what this car can do. So yeah, not much has been released about this car, but there's no doubt that this is a pretty quick sedan in terms of all electric sedans. And yeah, let's get on this drag strip, see what it can do before we hit the speed camera, and then we'll go around the track. So yeah, it's not got the highest of top speeds, but then most electric cars don't. Most are around 99 or 100 mile an hour, but this, as you'll see, will easily get up to its top speed before we hit the speed camera, which, as you can see, is about 118 miles an hour, so, or 119. It's around that, bounces around a little bit at times. But yeah, even though that's far from the quickest, you know, Tesla sometimes get up to 150, 160 mile an hour depending on the versions of those cars, and obviously the Porsche Taycan can go for about that kind of speed, and then you got your Rimacs and your Neo EP9s that can go more than that. So yeah, by no means the fastest at the top end, but it undoubtedly gets there really well quite quickly. And yeah, also deals with its weight quite well as well, as we'll see as we go around the track. But yeah, it's not the most exciting electric car, I think, is the worst thing I can say about this. At the end of the day, only really the fastest of electric cars are actually really exciting, so can't knock it down too much for that. So yeah, we're on the low end of A class, and as you can see, it's fairly decent stats there. Obviously the top speed is on the down low because it's only 119 miles an hour, but the handling, acceleration, launch are all fairly good. It's only really the brakes that are a bit of a concern, which, when you consider how much this weighs and how quick it is in terms of acceleration, that is quite concerning. So hopefully that's something that they sort out in the future. Obviously you can compensate for that a little bit by having the rear wheel drive version, which will obviously weigh a lot less with one electric motor and not any of the other gubbins that are going on. But yeah, still, that is concerning how bad the brakes are. Hopefully that isn't too much of an issue when, you know, you're only going around normal speed. So yeah, being an electric car, obviously there aren't that much in the way of sound or noise that comes from this, but just let you listen to it for a little bit because it does make some noises, which I can appreciate. So yeah, it's hardly sounding like a V8, but at least it's not whisper quiet. I do appreciate an electric car that has some audio noise to it. Makes it sound like you're driving something rather than nothing at all. And yeah, acceleration is pretty good as well. 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds. 0 to 100 in 8.583 seconds. And like we've seen before, it goes through a top speed of 119 miles an hour, which is plenty. You find many countries that have a top speed higher than that, and yeah, you're only really going to be in Germany on the autobahn. So yeah, that is plenty fast enough, and as you've seen, it's more than capable of getting up to, you know, even its top speed plenty quick. Never mind the top speeds of most countries. So yeah, plenty fast enough in that regard, and yeah, the handling is pretty good as well. Like I said, only really the brakes are of any concern. But with this all-wheel drive version, having plenty of grip at the rear and at the front, it's able to manage that weight pretty well. It's fairly neutral. It's got 49% of its weight up front, 51 at the rear, so it's pretty much bang on in terms of that. And obviously the batteries are quite down low, so it's got a low centre of gravity as well. So yeah, all in all, a very impressive car. Obviously it does have some flaws. You know, the boot isn't the biggest for an electric car when you consider, you know, it's got no drivetrain under there or anything like that, and then obviously the top speed is a lot less than some other performance orientated electric cars. But on the whole, I'm really rather impressed by this. I like the look of it, especially at the front. Not a massive fan of the rear lights on this, but overall the design is really rather nice. And yeah, it's got a decent interior, it's plenty quick enough, handles reasonably well, and yeah, outside of the brakes, it's more than capable of being a performance vehicle. But then again, it's not going to be a car that's going hugely fast, although those brakes are on the downside generally, because you're not going more than 120 miles an hour. You know, you don't really need to be stopping all that lightning quick. And yeah, it's an impressive car from China, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what else they come out with, really, because yeah, they're really accelerating their car production, and the public in China are obviously buying relentlessly in terms of cars overall, and this in its first 6 months sold more than 10,000 units, so it's been a reasonable success so far. But it's going to be interesting to see what it can do in the West, really, because that's where it's going to make or break itself in terms of its worldwide, you know, appeal, quite frankly. But yeah, overall I'm impressed by it, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Xpeng can do next. So you can get this by getting 20 points in the current festival playlist. Easy enough, do a couple of the championships or the online event, and you'll be there in no time at all. So yeah, nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.